All right, so ready to start? So the title of my message today is People of Peace. And it's something that is very close to my heart. And we're going to be learning about peace and how we can find peace in the midst of all that is happening. I know it's very exciting, right? Things are opening up, but also things are opening up, but we are very anxious at the same time. Happening within us, in our hearts, and the world around us. So peace, or this idea of peace, right, is a very nuanced idea actually. So the Merriam-Webster dictionary defines peace as in five categories. So one is a state or period of mutual concord between governments, a pact or agreement to end hostilities between those who have been at war or in state of enmity. So this is like a national level, right? Number two, a state of tranquility or quiet, such as freedom from civil disturbance, a state of security or order within a community provided for by law or custom. Okay, all the chim word come out. Number three, easier, is a harmony in personal relations. Like between you and I, we have peace. We don't fight each other. We don't hate each other, right? Number four is freedom from disquieting or oppressive thoughts or emotions. Now it's getting a bit more personal, right? And the last one, peace, is used interjectionally to ask for silence or calm or as a greeting or farewell, right? It's like, peace, 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 like peace, like let's not fight, okay? or peace as a greeting, like hi, peace, peace to you. So today I want to start off with like a quick poll. I want to do an activity together, okay? So you can go into Kahoot. Yeah, I feel like classroom now. Okay, I'm gonna ask you a series of questions, right? And then you're just gonna see what the answers are. Okay, so number one, my first question is, how many of you think that the world is at peace? Okay, vote yes, no, or not sure if you don't know. Okay, how many of you think that the world is at peace? If you don't know what peace is, yes, the definition is back here. Okay. Oh, well, there's one person who's like, hey, world peace right now. Awesome. Okay, second question, right, is how many of you think that our society is at peace? Okay, not bad. More people are thinking that it's getting more peaceful, right? Okay, number three. Okay, this is slightly getting into your own life right now. Okay, how many of you think that there is peace in your relationships? Oh, okay, don't do it, your friends, okay? Okay, hey, not bad. I wasn't expecting this. Cool. You're like peaceful people, right? Okay, now, number four, how many of you think that you are at peace? Okay, it's going back to our no and unsure, right? Okay, and then my final question is, how many of you think that you practice peace? Oh, it's like, again, I never thought about it. Okay, awesome, yes. So now, when you look through all the questions, right, and all our answers, isn't it interesting that most of us feel that the world around us is either, not at peace or we're unsure about it, right, like confused. So the idea of peace actually existed very long ago. But it's funny that we still find ourselves struggling with this ideal today. Human beings try very hard to maintain peace in the world by setting up systems, structures, governments, and laws, hoping that every single person can live in peace, but yet, we see society at large at peace, like some of you voted, right? But we still see individuals within those systems struggling with peace on the inside. So you see, as human beings, we have a great understanding of peace. We know what is peace. But our history tells us otherwise. Right? We learn in school about the world at war, nations fighting each other for conquest and power, and it is still happening today. We still witness countless instances of hatred and violence between people, friends, and groups. We are also at war within ourselves. We are constantly fighting an inner war dealing with depression, anxiety, bitterness, insecurities, worries, and fears. And it seems like the only time we truly experience peace is when we rest in peace, right? It's getting dark, right? When we totally stop reading, we stop living, that is when peace starts. And this is the thought I want to start off with, that is it even possible to have peace right now? So something shocking is that in a recent survey in Straits Times involving 3,336 young Singaporeans aged 11 to 18, shows that 1 in 3 youth in Singapore has internalizing mental health symptoms such as sadness, anxiety, and loneliness. And roughly 1 in 6 young people said they experience externalizing mental health symptoms such as hyperactivity, rule breaking, aggression. So it seems like the lack of peace is very evident in the world we live in today. We are living with heightened worries, anxieties, and fears, especially during the pandemic. Of course, there's good news is that more people are willing to seek help. And perhaps some of us here understands it because we sense this like tearing between us that divide us from our true selves, from other people, and even from the whole of creation. So we're going to look at in the Bible about what peace is, and the Bible teaches peace in a slightly different manner. So peace is derived from the original Hebrew word shalom. Okay, we learned shalom since the start of the year, right? So for our newer friends here, shalom is actually a very complex and nuanced word. So aside from peace, Bible scholars describe the meaning of shalom as completeness, wholeness, soundness, or welfare. Shalom is applicable to an external peace between two entities, such as individuals or nations, but most importantly, it focuses on an internal sense of peace within the individual. So really, peace or shalom in the Bible means that one finds themselves whole and complete and sound first from within our human souls, our hearts and our minds, then we are able to find harmony with other people and all of creation. Shalom, in essence, is taking what is broken on the inside of us and restoring it to wholeness, whether is it in our lives, our relationships, or in our world. Which brings me to my first point for today. Peace is a battle fought within. So we're going to look at a moment in the Bible when Jesus was speaking to his disciples. Okay, John 14:27, Jesus says, "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you not as the world gives. Don't be troubled or afraid." So now, in case you're wondering, why is Jesus talking about this, right? I'm going to give you a little backstory, okay? So Jesus was living in a time when the Roman Empire ruled all of Israel. They were the major power there. So Jesus, who was known as the Messiah, the one who will save all of God's people and restore peace and justice in the world, he is like the hero of the story, okay? But there was one night that Jesus was just chilling with his disciples, the few who are closest to him, right? His tribe, his FTA, his best friends. And then what he does is he revealed to them his death plan, that he was going to die. And what was worse, one of them, among them, is going to betray him. And another one is going to deny him. Now, imagine if a moment, right, that you are one of the disciples. Now, how would you react when you learn that Jesus, the hero, is going to die? And that one of us is going to betray him. And the other one is going to deny him. I would imagine that all of us would go into like a panic mode. Anxiety will hit us really, really hard, right? What are we going to do next? How do we break the news to the rest of the nation? Who is that traitor? Right? It will be like that. And with all these things happening, yet Jesus tells us now, peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. Like Jesus, that's not very helpful for a farewell gift, right? But jokes aside, right? Not everyone here has given a gift before, right? So when you prepare a gift, you will think about what the person needs or what would be a good gift that the person will use or enjoy or appreciate. So when Jesus says he gives us his peace, clearly he knows that we are lacking peace in our lives. And the second half of that verse is very, very interesting. Jesus says, "I give you not as the world gives. Don't be troubled or afraid." You see, the version of peace in the world where Jesus and the disciples were living in promotes peace through violence, oppression, and injustice. That's the world's idea of peace. But clearly, Jesus wants to give us a different kind of peace, something that the people then have yet experienced. Jesus' version of peace starts from within us, our human heart, our soul. And that's why he continued by saying, "Don't be troubled and afraid." Jesus tackled the problems of our souls. You see, worries and fears are the two most common things that steals our peace. And we're going to go by one, okay? So first one, worry. So when we worry, we find ourselves struggling with anxiety and crumbling under life's pressure, and we worry all the time. Right? For the youths, you'll be like, youths are carefree. No, youths worry about maybe their performance in school. whether we score well enough to meet our parents' expectations. Some of us are worried whether we will lag behind our peers when we miss a school a couple of days because we are sick. We worry if we can make it to school of our choice so that we can have the so-called good future, even though we don't know what that means. We worry if we have enough data on our phones or if our Wi-Fi is working, right? Or for the adults here, some of us are worried about our finances. Whether we are putting enough money aside for the future. Do we have enough to pay for our bills? We worry about relationships. Some of us are worried about our health. Or even little things like when you leave house, you worry whether you turn off the aircon or you forgot to take your keys. Now, just to give you a bit of caveat, okay? I'm not saying all worries are bad. A little bit of worry is actually healthy. Worry can help us to become more self-aware of our actions and responses. So I'm going to give you a very example, a fresh one from this week, okay? So a healthy worry that happened this week was on Wednesday. We were packing up for laser tag. Everyone left church already, right? It was about 12 a.m. So I was about to ride my bicycle home. Then I suddenly have this thought, right? Like, did we lock the back door? Because no one checked. It was like, did you lock the back door? And I was worried if the door wasn't locked, right? Anyone could just enter our premise and it would be a little bit troublesome. So to the good of my worry, I came back here, I checked, and indeed the door was left open. But that was a healthy worry. But being in a constant state of worry is unhealthy, especially when we begin to experience anxiety every day. We wake up and we head to bed worrying about all the negative things that might happen. You see, worry disrupts your future. Friends, every time we worry, we are thinking about an alternate future that might not even happen. And when our worries grow on us, we begin to divert our attention to prevent that alternate future or like our worst case scenarios from happening. We begin to put a lot of time and energy into that future. And yes, we might feel safe and secure at the end of the day, but it takes away our energy to move into the future that we truly want to create. So Matthew 6:25, it says, "Therefore I say to you, don't worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Isn't life more than food and the body more than clothes? Who among you by worrying can add a single moment to your life?" Ouch. "Therefore, don't worry and say, what are we going to eat, what are we going to drink, what are we going to wear? Instead, desire first and foremost God's kingdom and God's righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well." And verse 34, "Therefore, stop worrying about tomorrow, because tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." And what he's saying here is that we will never be able to finish worrying, so stop worrying. And God calls us not to worry about the unimportant things. And instead, we should put our focus on where God called us to be and to do. And as we do that, God will attend to our needs and deal with our worries. So friend, if that is you today, you realize you've been spending most of your energy fighting a fire that might not exist. You feel like a bit dreaded, tired, burned, and wasteful. Maybe it's just time to stop worrying and let those worries go. So to encourage you a little more, I'll borrow Zhan's research from last year about a study of an average person's worry. So the study shows that 91% of our worries, or 9 out of 10 worries, right, do not actually come true. So don't waste time, okay? And of the remaining 9% that did came true, the outcome was better than expected about a third of the time. So friends, don't worry too much. Nothing bad will happen. So turn to your friends beside you and say, "Don't worry, you'll be fine." I feel like, Okay. And the last thing I want to say is that some of us here are worrying about things that you have no control over. And friends, if that is you, we need to be able to gain mastery over our lives. We need to know what we can have control over and let go of what we do not. So listen, peace comes when we stop trying to control the world around us and instead take responsibility for the world within us. We cannot control our circumstances, but we can control our characters. Right? We cannot control which family we are born into, but we can decide who we want to become. We cannot control the actions of others, but you can control the choices you make. Right? We cannot control if someone else is abusive in a relationship, but we can make a choice to say no and walk away from those relationships. We cannot control the outcome, but we can control the process. Right? We cannot control whether the bus will be on time, right? But we can control by being there early for the bus. So for those of us, who are holding and controlling our lives too tightly, listen, peace does not come because you finally have control over your life. Peace comes when you no longer need control. So the second thing, that steals our peace is fear. Don't be afraid. So while worry disrupts our future, fear limits your potential. So when we are in a state of fear, we become paralyzed, right? We lose the courage to even try. And sometimes it's because we are afraid that we might fail. Or sometimes we are simply afraid of the task itself. And because of that, we can no longer be at peace. We begin to live life fearfully. And that was what happened to Job. Job 3:25, it says, because I was afraid of something awful and it arrived, what I dreaded came to me. I had no ease, quiet, or rest, and trembling came. Listen, what you fear has mastery over your life. When we have a fear of heights, we'll be limited by how high we can go. When we have fear of crowds, we'll likely be in isolation. When we have a fear of failure, we stop trying. We become limited to what we think we can do and what we think we cannot do. And sometimes it causes us to stop believing altogether. We become shackled by our fears. Friends, fear is what causes us to live beneath our potential. So maybe some of us know we have a dream in our lives, right? But at the same time, you are afraid to step into your future because you fear failure. Or you think that it is impossible to live into your dreams. Or that you'll be afraid that others might criticize your decision. Friends, if that is you, overcome fear with faith. Faith is the opposite of fear. So while fear limits your potential, faith releases you into your potential. Faith is the belief that what you hope for can happen. So my hope is that everyone here will decide to choose faith over fear, of course. To have the courage to believe it and try and make it happen. So for the youth here, maybe some of you have dreams of rising up as leaders. Or maybe some of you, God spoke to you about reaching out to that one friend in school, but you're fearful whether you can make it. Or you're fearful of what others might think about you. And if that is your encourage you, choose faith over fear. Or for the adults here, like me, maybe some of you felt God speaking to you about your calling, but you are fearful that others might judge you for it. Or that you are afraid about your own livelihood or losing out to your peers, or you are fearful of what if you're going to fail. And because of those things, you kind of park it aside or you even give up your calling or dreams. Again, choose faith over fear. And maybe some of us here, we have fears that might come from misinformation. So you see, whatever is informing us is forming us. So some of us might have heard things from other people, right? And you take that information and you make it your fear. And even though you have not even made an attempt to try. So I'm going to share a personal story of mine, right? So who here loves roller coaster rides? Like, thrill, woo! Okay, that's good for you, okay? So I remember when I was younger, I used to be very afraid of roller coasters because I heard my friends share about their first roller coaster experience. And it sounds very, very scary. And it's like, I cried during my first roller coaster ride. And what was worse is that my brother and I also watched this show called Final Destination. I think, anyone watch? Okay, yes. I don't recommend you to watch, okay, if you haven't watched it yet. And there was this scene where the roller coaster malfunctioned and some people were hurt. I was so scared, okay? So by all this information, right, that I became fearful of roller coasters, even though I have not taken one myself. I was like, no thanks, okay? So whenever I head to the theme park, right, I'll always be that one kind, big-hearted person, right? I take care of my belongings, go have fun. I feel like a parent with my friends. So, but there was once in secondary school when we had to travel to Genting for like a CCA competition, and then we had like a one-day complimentary theme park pass. That was like my ticket to hell, So initially, right, I skipped most of the rides because I was scared. But there was one moment that my close friend, my best friend, knew that I was scared. Then so he challenged me to take on the roller coaster ride because I lost a game of that. Like, then the guy, right, when you're young, you're like proud. Like, hey, I cannot back out my word. I'm a man of my word. So I remember Genting, there's this one huge roller coaster ride, and I think the name was called Corkscrew or something. Like there was like a 360-degree loop, I think twice, and then you spin one round, and I can still remember. And I was forced into the queue, which was like along the tracks, and I was like waiting for 5 minutes, right? My heart was like, ding, 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 ding. And then it came to our turn, and in the blink of an eye, right, I was already on the seat, strapped on. No, it was like, you cannot go out already. It's like, no point of return. And my heart was pounding so hard that I could feel like my heart is going to pop out any moment. And when the roller coaster goes up, right, so they'll escalate to the point, then it'll descend. I almost want to throw up already. If I haven't descended, I want to throw up already. Then my kind friend just reminded me, say, remember to scream, okay, you feel better. Like, okay, I will take that advice, right? Well, once it dropped, I screamed all the way till the roller coaster stopped. And when it stopped, I got out of my seat, right? My legs was like jelly. It was like, I can't stand up straight. But I just felt this like sudden surge of like adrenaline. And then I thought to myself, like, oh wait, it wasn't that bad. I made it out alive. And somehow I overcame my non-existential fear. Of course, I don't love roller coaster right now, but I can handle it. And for the rest of that day, I went on to try on different rides as well. So friends, my point is, don't let non-existential fear control your life. Especially if you have not even given it a try. Don't give up your hopes and dreams just because you are swayed by others telling you that it is not possible, that it's not practical, or that it doesn't have a good prospect, or you don't earn much money, or looking down at it. Before you even give it a go, have faith and be brave to try. The outcome is most likely going to be better than what you have imagined or you feared. So Tivo, worries and fears are battles to be fought within you. Fight for peace from within. Worry less, or don't worry at all, and overcome your fears. But also, know that you are not alone in this battle. Jesus is here to be your peace and to fight for your peace. Which brings me to my second point. Number 2, Jesus is our missing piece. Okay, it's a wordplay. Ooh. So, long before Jesus was born, right, there was a prophet named Isaiah who prophesied about Jesus. So Isaiah 9 verse 6, it says, "A child is born to us, a son is given to us, and authority will be on his shoulders. He will be named Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Eternal Father, Prince of Peace." And verse 7, "There will be vast authority and endless peace for David's throne and for his kingdom, establishing and sustaining it with justice and righteousness now and forever." So reading this passage, right, some of us, when I first time read it, I was like, I have this perception of Jesus, the prince, right, coming down on a horse and then coming to establish his power. He will destroy all the nation and then you'll be like, I will rule them all. But however, when you read the Bible and you begin to study Jesus' life on earth, you learn that Jesus' way of peace is the exact opposite. So if you go back to that verse, right, John 14:27, it says, "My peace I give you not as the world gives." So Jesus' intention of peace isn't through violence and establish that one kingdom that will rule us all. But instead, he wants to establish his peace through governance in our human hearts. Jesus knows that the real war is the war inside the human heart, and that true peace can only be achieved by bringing peace into our souls. So John 16:33, it says, "I've said these things to you so that you will have peace in me. In the world, you have distress." I give us a warning. You have distress. "But be encouraged. I have overcome the world." So we often look at this verse, right, and we think that the world refers to the world around us. But Jesus wants to change the world through our world, the ones from within us. And some of us just love this part when Jesus says, "I have conquered the world." We go like, "Yes, Jesus conquered the world." Right? We point at everybody except for us. Right? "Jesus, you conquer the world, but not my world. Okay, don't conquer my world. I want my own life." We expect Jesus to become like our magic doctor and fix everything around us, but not us. Right? "Jesus, can you do something about my financial situation? But, I don't really want to work very hard. Or, "Jesus, can you do something about this friend that I don't really like, but I don't want to work on my character?" Okay, wait, don't turn on, look at each other, okay? But as we take on that posture, I realize that someone else in the room on the other end, right, is looking back and says, "Jesus conquered the world," and he's pointing back at you. So it's funny that we want Jesus to change everything in our lives, but not our hearts. Friends, Jesus wants to fight for peace in our hearts. Jesus wants to be in our hearts to fight against the worries and fears that we have been accumulating in our lives. He wants to deal with our anxieties, our struggles, our depression, every heavy burden that we are carrying on our shoulder with us and in us. So another story of mine is that I grew up in a family that I consider as slightly absent. My parents were busy at work, and my brothers, who were 6 and 7 years apart from me, were in different stages of life. So we don't often talk to each other, and I was pretty much growing up alone. And I did have family meals, but it was often very quiet. So the relationship with my family became the standard of relationships around me. Instead of talking to my family and my friends about my problems, I began to keep things in. However, after some time, the bottled up feelings grew on me, and I feel highly anxious most of the time. Now, I began to trace back my thoughts and my feelings, right? And I started to grow this bitterness against my parents. I dislike how they raised me as compared to what my friends have. And then my anxiety got worse. The stress I was facing and coping with my studies added more pressure. And there were nights when I would just lay on my bed and tears just started flowing unknowingly. And looking back, maybe I might have just experienced a little bit of depression when I felt that I have no one to turn to. And I remember I couldn't hold in my emotions and overwhelming thoughts anymore, and decided one of the gatherings that week to come and just pray desperately. God, if you are real, do something about my situation I'm in, show me you are real, just do anything you can do. And at that moment, I felt this warm presence surrounding me as though someone was close to me. It was an unfamiliar feeling, but it felt comfortable. And I heard a voice in my head saying, I'm always here, you can share your troubles with me. And that was the moment I felt God very real for the first time. And tears also began just flowing out of my eyes, and I felt all those emotions that I have kept in my heart, and as I poured it out to Him. And it was in that moment I felt like a heavy burden was lifted off my chest. But that's not it, of course. Towards the end, God told me to forgive my parents. And I no, that cannot be, right? But I did not really understand that, but I know that it was important. And I took the first step by praying a prayer of forgiveness towards my parents. And it was after that, then God challenged me to change my attitude towards them, to become more understanding of them and where they are coming from. And it was a long journey of reconciliation, but today, of course, I'm in good terms with my parents. But if I have not prayed that prayer at that moment, I might have not experienced peace that I so desperately need today. So Isaiah 41:10, it says, don't fear because I am with you. Don't be afraid for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will surely help you. I will hold you with my righteous strong hand. Friends, Jesus is the missing piece in the hearts. He wants to be here for you in the midst of your struggles and burdens. So sitting here like me, if you say you want to experience that kind of peace Jesus can bring to your heart, all we have to do is just to invite Him into our lives. So Jesus wants to bring peace to the world by bringing peace into our hearts, but it doesn't end there. Number 3, we are called to be people of peace. So Jesus doesn't only want to transform our hearts, but He wants us to do the same and bring peace to others. So if you look back at the story of Jesus, we learn that God sent His Son, Jesus, the Prince of Peace, to bring peace to earth. But the irony is that humanity's violent nature killed this gift of peace 2,000 years ago by nailing Him to the cross. And humanity was brought into chaos again. The Prince of Peace, the Messiah, is dead. All hope was lost. However, 3 days after His death, we learned that Jesus was brought back to life. Jesus conquered death. And these are Jesus' first words to His disciples when He came back to life. John 20:19, it was still the first day of the week, that evening, while the disciples were behind closed doors because they were afraid of the Jewish authorities, Jesus came and stood among them, like a ghost. And He said, the first thing He said is, Shalom, peace be with you. Jesus knew the world was thrown into chaos and confusion, but He first attended to His disciples by saying, Shalom, peace be with you. Jesus knew that the disciples had been through a lot. From betrayal to denial to guilt, shame and fear, so much so that the disciples had to meet behind closed doors. You see, Jesus' response to our distress and violence isn't more distress and violence. Jesus' response by giving his peace as promised. And that's not it. And later on in verse 20, it says, after he said this, he showed them his hands and his side. When the disciples saw the Lord, they were filled with joy. It's like, yes, confirm, it's Jesus. And verse 21, Jesus said to them again, peace be with you, as the Father sent me, so I am sending you. You know, Jesus showed the disciples the wounds, right? The signs of our human violence, our lack of peace. And he reminded them again, peace be with you. He reminded them again that I am the peace promised. And now I am sending you to bring peace to the world. You see, people of peace are not just receivers of peace. They are also givers of peace. So Hebrews 12:14, it says, pursue the goal of peace along with everyone and holiness as well, because no one will see the Lord without it. Friends, Jesus' mission is to bring peace to everyone. And Jesus has called us to be a part of his mission. That we can experience his peace, his love, and compassion and do the same for another person. A friend who is also struggling in life with a lack of peace. Struggling with worries and fears, dealing with anxiety nowadays. You know, we can be a people of peace in their lives just like how Jesus is the Prince of Peace in our lives. So the way we can bring peace to others is through love. So Luke 1, verse 78, it says, because of God's deep compassion, the dawn from heaven will break upon us, to give light to those who are sitting in darkness and in the shadow of death, to guide us to the path of peace. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel to bring peace to others. You know, Jesus already demonstrated it 2,000 years ago. Jesus' way of peace is through love. And now listen, people of peace have generous love. You see, Jesus loved us so much that he was willing to die from our violence. And even so, Jesus is so generous with his love that he conquered death and he chose to forgive us and promised to give us the gift of peace. And I know this is counterintuitive, right? You know, sometimes we will call it foolish. You know, why would someone love someone so much that to the extent that you're willing to take on the penalty of death? But that is Jesus' way of peace, through generous love. And now we ask ourselves, how does generous love look like? Romans 12, verse 9. It says, love should be shown without pretending. Hate evil and hold on to what is good. Love each other like the members of your family. Be the best at showing honor to each other. Don't hesitate to be enthusiastic. Be on fire in the spirit as you serve the Lord. Be happy in your hope. Stand your ground when you're in trouble and devote yourselves to prayer. Contribute, right? Contribute to the needs of God's people and welcome strangers into your home. Bless people who harass you. Bless and don't curse them. Oh, that's very hard for this. Be happy with those who are happy and cry with those who are crying. Be there for your friends. Consider everyone as equal and don't think that you are better than anyone else. Don't compare. Instead, associate with people who have no status. Don't think that you are so smart. Don't pay back anyone for their evil actions with evil actions, but show respect for what everyone else believes is good. Friends, as I'm reading this passage, think to yourself, if you have loved others generously, now have you brought peace into your friends' lives? And yes, this kind of love is very, very hard to comprehend. I'll admit, Jesus' way of peace, shalom, is hard to comprehend sometimes. But it is in this incomprehension that we also find a kind of peace from God. And that God is in control of this world. And the amazing thing is that the more we give peace to others, the more we find ourselves restored in peace. Because Jesus, the Prince of Peace, is within us. He is our source of peace giving. My final verse for today, Philippians 4, verse 7 and 9. Then the peace of God that exceeds all understanding will keep your hearts and minds safe in Christ Jesus. Practice. Verse 9, practice these things. whatever you learned, received, heard, or saw in us, in the community, the God of peace will be with you. So fam, as we head into our 8-week cycle, I want you to find peace and become a people of peace. The world, your friends, needs peace. Let's become a people of peace that is faith-giving, that is hope-giving, love-giving, life-giving towards others, regardless of their statuses and their backgrounds. And I really believe that God will use our community to touch many lives together.